Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're looking at something you probably walk past, or, impatiently rip out of your plant pots literally every single day. Weeds. But instead of viewing them as these garden villains that we usually attack with a tiny trowel and a whole lot of misplaced rage, we're going to explore their untapped ornamental potential. Okay, let's dive into this. So before we get into the specifics of our source material, I really want you to ask yourself, what exactly makes a plant a weed? Right? Like, is it a strict botanical classification, or is it kind of just a plant growing where a human didn't explicitly invite it? It's a pretty fascinating paradigm shift when you think about it. By definition, a weed is just an uninvited guest. But what if we gave these guests the exact same respect we give to the seeds we actually pay for? Part 1. The balcony discovery, a microscientific method. This all stems from a July 14, 2026 diary entry from Notes on Gardening by an observer named Ang.
And this brilliantly illustrates two vastly different approaches to nature. Traditionally, gardening is all about control. You go to a nursery, buy these vibrant, large-petalled plants, and dictate exactly where they grow. But Ang treats an everyday balcony like a vibrant, microscientific laboratory. Instead of buying seeds, Ang deliberately collects wild flowering weeds right from the balcony to observe and evaluate. It's really about letting nature make the very first move.
Which brings us to a very specific number, 2. Ang noted that exactly 2 fast-growing plant species unexpectedly sprouted on the balcony. They weren't planted, they didn't come from a little packet. They simply arrived, right? Just hitchhikers on the wind or hidden in the soil. And instead of pulling them up to make room for store-bought flowers, Ang just stepped back and let this impromptu scientific experiment play out to see what these 2 resilient plants could actually offer.
Moving into Part 2, the botanical mystery, identifying the subjects. Let's see what actually took root out there.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how giving something a formal scientific name completely changes our psychological perception of it. Ang successfully identified the first volunteer as a type of chickweed, specifically ageratum-conyzoides. And fun fact here, chickweed is actually so stubbornly resilient that it can often produce seeds even after being completely uprooted. Crazy, right? So suddenly, this isn't just some nameless nuisance. It's a documented botanical specimen. It's elevated into a totally respectable subject of study.
But, our balcony laboratory has a highly compelling layer of intrigue. We have plant number 1 officially identified. Plant number 2, however, is a complete mystery. Ang notes it was incredibly hard to find a good match in literally any botanical reference. And an unknown variable like this, it keeps you absolutely hooked. Like, what kind of flowers will it produce? How tall is it going to grow? We simply have to watch and wait.
Let's move to Part 3 and see how this builds. The cluster hypothesis, redefining beauty. This is where a simple daily observation turns into a grand aesthetic thesis. Ang maps out this beautifully methodical roadmap for us. Step 1, patiently wait for both the chickweed and the mystery plant to fully bloom. Step 2, carefully harvest their seeds. And finally, Step 3, propagate those seeds, but, and this is key, propagate them in dense clusters. So it's a highly deliberate scientific process testing a brand new aesthetic theory.
So the crucial point is this one question Ang asks. What if we grow them in a cluster? Think about it. A single, solitary chickweed flower is super small and easily overlooked, right? It's definitely not a traditional showstopper. But Ang theorizes that an abundance of these tiny flowers, deliberately clustered together, can completely match the sheer visual power of large-petalled nursery plants. It's a brilliant reframing. It prioritizes volume, texture, and collective impact over just individual size. Of course, this is a real-time exploration. Ang's diary entry actually closes on a note of active anticipation. The seeds haven't been harvested yet. The dense clusters haven't been planted. The final spectacular visual impact remains to be seen. But this approach, it completely transforms gardening from a static chore into a live, unfolding narrative playing out right on a balcony.
Which leaves us with a final thought to take away today. The next time you step out onto your balcony or into your yard and see something sprouting that you definitely didn't plant, ask yourself, could those weeds actually be hidden showstoppers? Are you pulling up a pest or a potential centerpiece waiting to be clustered? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep observing, keep questioning, and try looking at the untamed nature right outside your door just a little bit differently.